to another Western Ag Life Voices podcast, where we celebrate the people that make up the rich fabric of the Western lifestyle. Please do us a favor and thank the sponsors, because without them, we couldn't bring you these free podcasts.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Ramirez with the Western Ag Life podcast. I have a special guest on this morning. You guys are listening to it right in the heart of the Livestock Marketing Association's convention, and then the World Livestock Auctioneer Championship should be taking place tomorrow. You guys will be able to follow along that on the LMA's website, and then also on the YouTube for LMA. So stay tuned to that. But let's get right to the work here this morning. Got our current 2004-2025 World Champion Livestock Auctioneer, Wade Leist. Wade, how in the world are you this morning?
Oh, it's been awful good. Really good. We're getting a little better weather up here up north. And
it's green behind me.
Yeah, it's green.
Behind you.
Yeah, we got a little moisture and getting a little warmth during the days. Today it's not super warm, but it's better than it was all spring. So, yeah, things are going well.
Yeah, there would be nobody with a jacket on like that until at least November of this year. So, well, Wade, it's been quite a year for you, huh?
Yeah, snap of a finger, and went from, the highest high winning to trying to get settled in and get ready to start doing some touring for the LMA, and then once you get into the thick of it, like in the fall and late winter, early spring kind of stuff, like it just took off. And all the once you turn around, you're like, I'm only like 6 weeks away, and then it's 2, and then it's 1, and I make the most common question I've been asked is, are you ready to be done? Like it's, and I understand the concept of the question, but it's been such an honor for me to do this, and I've got to do the thing that I enjoy most all over the country. So I've enjoyed it. I won't say that I'm like ready or wishing it was over or trying to speed it up, but I am excited to be able to let somebody else experience it. I'm excited to see who gets to do that.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll be selecting a new champion.
Yep.
And certainly, it's quite an honor. Just tell me, just in a little, lighthearted way, what did it really mean to you to win this championship? What, was it a goal? Was, what would, just kind of in short version about really what it meant to you?
Yeah, it was a goal, but it was something like when I first started competing in this, it was, I'd sit next to guys like yourself and Romine and Brian Little at qualifiers and things. And I just knew I was overmatched, but I wanted to see how it measured up. And, once you start getting in and getting a little bit of success and being somebody that they're like, okay, this guy could make the top 10, and then he should make the top 10. He better make the top 10. Like when you start seeing that progression, and then you start putting yourself in a conversation of saying like, yeah, this could be his year. That, it's a goal, but just watch, or, being able to be in that progression and doing the things that help you get to that, making changes, like improving yourself, improving your chant, improving yourself as an auctioneer as you go along that journey. That was pretty neat. And now, kind of going back to your question about like, how did it feel? Like, it was, the best word I could come up with is surreal. I was literally the last person in the room that knew that I had won. People were clapping, and I'm looking around to see like who's standing up, and
because all that screaming starts happening. You're like, who did win?
Yeah. And I couldn't hear the chant. When they play the chant, I couldn't hear it. Even if I could hear it, I don't think I would have recognized it. And then I didn't hear a name at all. I could just hear clapping, and I'm looking around, and everybody's at my tables looking at me, and all the ones that dawned on me. And that's when like the surreal part started, and as I'm walking up to the stage thinking, okay, I've thought about this moment, but none of the stuff that I thought about matters anymore. Like I just have to stay in this moment and absorb every minute of it. And, it was just surreal. That's the best way to put it. It's like your out of body experience, watching yourself, enjoy something that you worked for.
Yeah, kind of like a movie, I guess. What, people, when you see a movie. And so, tell me, just so our listeners can get kind of a feel, about what, was your expectations as being the representative for the Livestock Marketing Association, kind of what was your role and what did they really want from you this year?
They, I guess I don't know what they wanted from me. I think they wanted somebody that was just going to represent the industry well. And, the things that you learn when you're in the contest, put those to use, the talking points, the things the LMA is working on for the industry, just be a good spokesman for that. But overall, just be a good representation of the industry itself. When you win this deal, initially there's a lot of media attention, more than probably what I expected, and you get put in front of people that have no idea what the livestock industry is about, and they're depending on you. They want you to be able to answer hard questions and answer it in a way that makes our industry look good. So I think that's one of the main expectations that they have, and hopefully I fulfilled that. My expectation was, like, I'm going to go get to see some really cool stockyards. I'm going to get to sell a lot of cattle. I'm going to get to work for a lot of great producers. I'm going to be all over the country doing that. And every part of that was met with excitement on my part. And from the producer and from the market standpoint, they met every one of my expectations. I don't know how many appearances I've done, 40 or 45 maybe, but they have been just off the charts. I don't care if it's just, a little bitty market selling 300 head a week or a market selling 8,000 a week. They all represented the market very well, and they all met all of my expectations. I had just an incredible time in all of them.
Yeah, I want to come back and visit a little bit later. For a lot of communities, the sale barn is kind of the central hub of their little community, and so I want to come back and visit that towards the tail end of our discussion this morning. I want to ask you a question. I'm sure since now that you've got involved and you were intimate in this deal, what has any perspectives changed on your part about our industry that you saw that maybe something that you wouldn't have that surprised you a little bit about our industry as a whole from your perspective?
Yeah, that I don't know if this maybe is going a different way than what you're looking for, but the perceptions that we may have of certain areas was erased. Like I went to Alabama and I couldn't believe the amount of cattle down there, and I couldn't believe the amount of cattle that would fit in anybody's feed yard around the country. They are tremendous cattlemen. They have a hugely supportive cattlemen's association down there. Florida was another one. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of eared cattle. There's a lot of humpback cattle or humpneck cattle. There's a lot of, there's a lot of crossbred cattle down there, tiger stripes, all that kind of stuff. But, they fit well in that area. And those cattle have a lot of demand, not only in the Southeast, but across the country. When I went to New Mexico for that qualifier, seeing the cattle that were coming across the border in Santa Teresa, there was cattle that you could put anywhere in the country and they just kind of fit in, and they all had a producer behind them that was putting some some thought and some effort into that into that production, genetics behind it, understanding the heterosis, understanding the value of some crossbreeding. There was
their health programs,
their health protocol. Yeah. That was one of the things that kind of changed my mindset. And it's not that I had a negative mindset of anybody in the country. It's just that I knew, things were way different. And then you get down in some of those areas and I'm driving through Alabama, just looking around. I'm like, there is good cattle all over down here. Kentucky. I mean, I remember when guys would buy cattle out of Kentucky and ship them way up here to turn out on grass, and they'd go to Kentucky because they could buy them a little cheaper and they could get a little more uniformity. And those cattle a lot of times were just a little shorter and maybe they had a little finer bone. And I didn't see that. I didn't see that at all. I still saw the uniformity, and I also didn't see a drop in the market. It was one of the recent ones I went to. Oh, Missouri. Missouri sends a lot of cattle up into like Iowa, and they'll get backgrounded up there. And when I first started going to South Dakota, the guys would tell me they'd drop down to Missouri because they could buy them back just a little bit. That was one of the highest sales I sold was in Missouri this year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think one thing, and this is kudos to the cattlemen, is and I think you and I both, selling the number of cattle that we've sold, in front of us in the ring, and that is that it becomes to order buyers and to feed yards and so forth. There's no secrets, but it becomes quite apparent that when someone intentionally does the things that they do to advance their herd and their health.
Yeah,
there's just no secret, when they come in there, you see that. And of course, certainly when those cattle go on and either they have to perform on grass or perform in a pen, and then our industry is somewhat small, reputation's either good or bad, and that can help you or hinder you for sure. So, yeah.
Something else I thought was kind of funny. Like, I've always heard that, cowboys want to be cattlemen want to be cowboys, and there's always just that kind of that, I don't want to say jealousy. It's not jealousy. It'd be like, they look up to other areas or other parts of the industry. And if you're a cattleman in Georgia, you might say like, well, those guys out in Missouri, they really know how to do it. Those guys move a lot of cattle. They really know how to do it. If you're in Missouri, those guys in Iowa, they sure know how to feed cattle. Well, they got, they do such a great job. And then the cattlemen in Iowa are talking about South Dakota, and the one in South Dakota is talking about Montana, and the one in Montana is talking about, Western Montana. Like they're all,
and no one was talking about Arizona.
Yeah. but they all kind of have like some envy towards some other part of the country, but what they do in their own area, like they're some of the smartest people in the world sitting in a sale barn buying cattle. Like
absolutely,
man, if they got it figured out. At the end of a sale, that one of them sales, some of them sales where they might sell one or two at a time, and they'll sell 1,200 head or something like that. At the end of the day, that guy's got 6 loads bought, and he's put them on 13 different numbers, and you go out in the pen and they all look alike. Like, like, to me, that's pretty hard to do in some areas of the country. And meanwhile, that guy's looking at South Dakota and saying, man, those guys really see a lot of cattle. And, they get these big groups that all look alike. Well, yeah, they all look alike, but because they all came in ringing, they looked alike.
Because they sorted them that way.
Yeah, this guy down in Tennessee and Florida and Georgia, he had to put them together.
Sorting them one at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That takes
and then some of those
skill.
places, when they sell 2 and 3 a minute, and they don't even shut the out gate. That's a good point. Yeah, some of those guys are pretty darn handy.
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun to see. That was probably my biggest learning curve. I think Florida might have been one of the first trips that I went on, and learning their hand signals. Paris, Kentucky was a very difficult one. Like the guys would put cattle on like 2 4-digit numbers. Like they'd be buyers 6838 and put them on the 6641s. It'd be a number like that. And it was so hard to kind of keep up. And then once you figure it out, you're like, okay, that makes sense. And you go to Florida, and it's like, well, that was a little easier. And then you go to Alabama, it's like, okay, I'm ahead of them now. Then when you get to Tennessee, I remember the first time I went to Tennessee, I sold with Massey at Unionville, and those buyers might just as well have been speaking Chinese to me.
Yeah.
I had no idea what they were saying or what numbers they were holding up. I didn't know nothing about the cattle. I mean, I might as well been selling in China. Well, by the time I came back to Unionville after going to those other places, like I kind of, I felt like I had a much better grasp of it. I was at least speaking English.
Huh. So I guess that kind of leads me into a question I was going to ask you. Just kind of what did you see kind of the regional differences? There's differences, from the west central part, and then of course the east part. What kind of stands out to you that was different?
I think the biggest differences was watching how the buyers, when they all seem to have a similar system of how they use for pen and cattle and their numbers and stuff like that, like kind of figuring that out. Some of their hand gestures, this is a 9 in my part of the country, and in some this is a 9, and do the, like, this would be like a 303, 303X, figuring out some of those hand gestures and stuff. And then other part of the country is like they literally will hold up a number with a 1 on it, like I'm 601 and put them on a 1.
Yeah,
that's easy.
Yeah.
That was one of the bigger differences. I did really appreciate, I remember going to auction school, and Ty D Cordova was in my auction school class, and he talked about selling one at a time. It was down, I think, Groesbeck or something. I think there's a sale barn down there, somewhere near them down there, and they would sell them all one at a time, and they would weigh those cattle after they left the ring.
Yep.
And yeah, that blew my mind. Like, why in the world would anybody do that? And then when you get to that area of the country, where they do something similar, you can kind of start figuring out why they do that. And all of a sudden it kind of makes sense. Where if you're in one area of the country that doesn't make sense at all, and you go to another part of the country and it makes perfect sense. I can totally understand why they do that. I was at one of the Barnett's barns in Kentucky, Southwest Kentucky, Guthrie. I was in Guthrie, and they would grade some of their cattle. They would, as they come in off the trailer, they would weigh them off the trailer, grade the cattle, and then wouldn't even bring them into the ring when they had a bigger group. If they had 30 heifers weighing 600 and they had them graded up with, maybe there was 5 consigners in that group, they didn't even bring them in the ring. The buyers had all the trust in the world that those cattle they already knew what they were going to look like. That was interesting.
Yeah.
You don't see that anywhere.
Yeah, that's definitely different. So what, I know you've had the chance, you got to sell, quite a bit on, on the internet sales and then the live sales. But I just want to ask you kind of what one sale kind of stuck out to you this year that was kind of like, that was cool and you were excited to be there being the world champion livestock auctioneer.
Probably one of the coolest ones was Topenish, Washington. And it had a little bit to do with just the area. I've never been to the Northwest up there. I had a picture in my head what it would look like, and it was 180 degrees the other way. I thought I was going up to basically a rainforest. I got to a desert.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was their part of the country. And Merle Booker, who I'm wearing the Booker auction hat, Merle took me around the country, happened to pick up, and he took me around a feed lot and took me to his auction yard and whatever, and told me a lot of the history of that area. I didn't, like I said, I thought it was like a rainforest area, like you would think of Seattle or something, And he talked about irrigating after damming up the rivers and then irrigating, and then all of a sudden the irrigated farm ground got worth a lot more money, and it's basically like the Central Valley up in Washington State. And then so I spent a whole day with him, and then went to Topenish the next day, and the owner there just sat and BS'd with him for 3 hours before the sale. And he has an incredible market, and it kind of felt a little like home in that we were selling dairy cattle mixed with native cattle. He sold weigh cows. They might run in a ring full of dairy cull cows.
Sure.
Might have some heiferette dairy cattle in there, and then a little while later, they're selling ringfuls of native pound cows, and then we get to the feeder cattle and the same of both of those. And I just really, really enjoyed myself up there in that part of the country.
Yeah, a lot of good people up there.
That was one of those where it's like, this, every one of these stops was cool, but that was one of those like, oh yeah, this is different. Like, I didn't expect this at all. This was all new.
Well, and then to get the opportunity to spend a whole day with, any of the Booker families is a real, it should almost charge for that. I mean, if you didn't learn anything, and I wouldn't care who it is, you know what I mean? Which Booker it is, female or male, if you get to spend the day with a Booker, it's definitely, you're a better person coming away.
I got to buy Merle lunch, so I feel like I paid for a little bit of it.
Yeah. Those people will make you feel short, though.
Yeah.
Anytime you're around them, I don't know, I'm not the tallest guy, but I darn sure feel short anytime I'm around a Booker. That's for sure. But they're big people, but they're big-hearted people, and definitely, they're definitely pillars of our auction industry as a whole. All right, so let's say, what was the best customer appreciation day, barbecue event that you think that Sale Barn hosted?
Man, I might have to think on that for a little bit. Where did I go to?
Were
There
you
was
any parades or anything?
no, there was no parades. I'm trying to think. There was really only a few that had like a customer appreciation. There was a couple that I wanted to get to, but the schedule didn't allow it. I might have had an auction on that day. I remember Lynn Langvart, they had a customer appreciation. That was in February, and I wanted so bad to get there. And I wasn't able to make that one. I want to say, there was a couple of Red Angus deals where they did a cookout. They did a Red Angus special in Sydney, Montana, and they did one in Dodge City, and they kind of had an impromptu one. What was that other market? I want to say there was one in Oklahoma. They had like an impromptu one, but those were a really good time. Those it was really cool. I remember Dodge City. One guy had like 700 or 800 head of Red Angus cattle, and they were just, they were so green, and we lit that place on fire when they came in. It was pretty cool, and I got to hang around with Joe Frazier for that one, and Joe had, I was excited to talk to him. I talked to him a few years before that, but never met him, and so I was excited for that. So that was probably one of the highlight ones, I guess, for customer appreciation, because it was a Red Angus special. Sure. And I'd never been to Dodge City. Sitting in that market, I felt like I was a old gunslinger or something. That was cool.
Amen. Huh? What about, where was the best food during the year you ate?
The best food, let's see. Lakeland, Florida has this little trailer that this lady sits outside the market, and they don't have a cafe in the market. They just have this little portable trailer, and she's there every week. And she was phenomenal. I just kept going back out there and see what else she had. And,
hey, Wade's going to come up here in a little bit when he gets done eating again.
one of the last ones. Where was that at? Oh shoot. I got it wrote down here somewhere. One of the last places I went. I think it was in Missouri. Oh yeah, that's where it was. It was it was Marty Cruz's market in Missouri. They had a cafe, and they had it's Central Ozarks in I don't remember the city, but it's in Missouri there. And they had these jalapenos cut in half, and the lady put like a cream cheese filling or something in there, and they had them sitting under a glass, like a cake thing. And I sat up there and I ordered, I don't know, a burger or something like that. And I kept looking over. I love jalapenos, and I kept looking over at those peppers. And finally, one of the girls came by, and I'm like, is this like a display, or? And she pulled that off, and you could just get that aroma. I'll never forget that. Those were awesome.
It's memorable, huh?
I think I did gain about 20 pounds throughout the course of the year, just enjoying some of the market food.
Well, now you're being a good auctioneer. Got to have a little belly on you. What about a road trip memory? Missing a flight, broken down, tire, crash?
I
missed a flight, missed a sale.
Yeah, I had a few times where weather in the St. Louis, Des Moines, Iowa, I was supposed to go for something, and it just seemed like all in the middle of the U.S. there was a lot of storms this year. And I was in Dallas for something, and I had to fly up to Des Moines, and I woke up to my flight being canceled. And so I rebooked, and they sent me down to Houston. I got to Houston, I landed, my flight was canceled out of there. And when I called whoever it was, American Airlines or something, they said, well, we'll only reimburse you for half your trip because you took half of it. Like, but I'm further away than what I started. It doesn't make any sense.
I only charge you for half, but now you're in Mexico.
But while I was telling that story, I remembered. So when I went to Florida, that was in September, that Hurricane Helene was coming in as I was down there. So it was either Helene or the one right after it, but I think it was Helene, because I think the next one, it was Helene. So I went down to, I flew into, I think, Orlando or Tampa, and then I drove down to Okeechobee. Then I come up to Lakeland, and while I was at Lakeland, I learned that Arcadia was canceled the next day because Helene was coming through.
Oh, I remember
So
that. Yeah.
I drove into Orlando and rode it out at a hotel, big hotel there. And I remember going to dinner that night as a hurricane was coming in. I didn't know. I mean, I don't know nothing about hurricanes or anything like that, you know. I just knew it was coming, and it was all over
You were
the
thinking
news.
that was a cocktail.
Yeah. Well, I went to this restaurant, and I had a bar at the restaurant, and they're having like a hurricane party or something in there. And I looked out the window, and you know how when you watch in the news, when the Weather Channel, when the hurricane's coming in, like there's a reporter like leaning into the wind, and you see like the stop sign like wiggling behind them. Well, that stop sign was like wiggling out in the parking lot, and it reminded me of one of those news features where they got the hurricane coming in, and then somebody comes in, and they said that a tree had just fallen in the parking lot and crushed a car, and everybody looks out. They're like, "Well, it's not mine. I'll have another one." And they and they just sat there through the hurricane. And then the next day, I went back to Dunellen to hang out with Marcus Kent because they had canceled Arcadia. So I had a day, and him and I were going to do a charity auction that weekend. So I was staying. So I went in and worked with his for his brothers on a ranch that his brother Nick runs, and just doing some day working, which I'm probably the worst day worker and horse rider in history, but they let me hang around and help. And we went to lunch, and we came back, and I thought, oh, here's the hurricane. Like the rain came in, and the wind picked up, and the clouds turned black, and those guys are just standing under a lean-to, like just sitting there, you know. A couple guys are drinking a beer and
status quo, huh?
Yeah, just no big deal, you know. And I'm thinking, like, we need to get the hell out of here. Well, it turns out it was just like a thunderstorm, like a random pop-up thunderstorm in Florida that I know nothing about.
Yeah.
And then when the next hurricane came through, I was in Alabama, and they gave my hotel room away to the electrical line workers. So I had to drive like 4 hours south till I can find another hotel room. And it was a little, you know, wasn't the best hotel I've ever been at in my life. I'll say that. But
well, great.
So
those
were kind of my weather stories.
What about, I'm sure there must have been an individual that you met this year that would have had some kind of impact on you, whether it was another auctioneer, order buyer, young person, sale barn owner, you know, just maybe give me one. And if you have to give me two, that's okay.
There was, when I was in Montana, so I went to, trying to get these right. I know I was in Sydney, and I was in Glasgow, Montana. I was in Bowman, North Dakota. And what was the other one? There was one other market that I was at up there, but there was one buyer at all of those markets. And I don't know if he was full of it or what. I just remember he was just a really fun buyer. He was, you know, he was easy to joke with. He did a good job buying cattle. He was good to bid to, but he'd get Miles City. That's the other one I was at, Miles City. He'd get really sparked up about stuff, but, you know, super animated, like some of them get, you know, he'd get super animated, but afterwards, you know, he'd go out and just, I don't know, we got to be kind of friendly after seeing each other 3 days in a row. Mm-hmm. And outside of that, now that I mentioned Miles City, Bart Megid, I'd been introduced to him. He owns Miles City. I'd been introduced to him all of 20 years ago. I bet it was like 2005 or 6, probably. Well, maybe it wouldn't be 20 years ago, 19 years ago, whatever it was. I was introduced to him, and talked to him for a few days, had a friend in common. I seen him at the LMA conference once, and him and I and his wife, after I get done helping at his sale, just sat in his restaurant there, his cafe there, and just chatted for probably an hour. And I just really enjoyed that. You know, I like I said, I haven't, you know, I've known him for a long time, but it's not like we've been super close. And just to sit and chat and you know, share stories back and forth, that was pretty cool. A lot of impact.
I don't know him or them, but you know, Randy Sears worked for them for a lot of years.
Yep.
And did you get a chance to meet Randy?
No, Randy's had some health stuff going on.
He's had some health.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I
so
tell you what, I have an immense amount of respect. Randy put on social media that those people have taken very, very good care of him through that process. And,
Yep.
I think a lot of times auctioneers don't, sometimes we, when you get sick or whatever, you just kind of don't think about that guy. You know what I mean? Because you get him replaced right away and then you
That's
just
right.
kind of
Yeah.
move on. But
Yep.
I don't know all the details, but I can tell you that they were awful good to Randy and through his perils. And I have immense amount of respect for people like that,
Yeah.
saw through that.
Yeah.
And I know Randy does too. And he's a good guy. And I hope he fully recovers and gets back there. And so I respect the fact that they saw the value of him to them and respected him as a person and knew he was going through a tough time in his life.
Yep. Yeah.
So
No, and they're the type of people that would, they're super people. And, Randy's the kind of guy that you don't forget either.
Yeah.
So
tremendous auctioneer.
one of the very best.
Tremendous. So there must have been like a young auctioneer this year that you kind of got to be friends with a little bit, kind of maybe take under your wing a little,
Yeah, there was.
You're busy. It's hard to mentor somebody, but I'm sure there must be somebody that you kind of.
I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm a mentor to any of these guys by any means. There was a few guys that I got to would ask for any advice or anything like that, and more than happy to share what I know. It doesn't mean it's going to make them any better, or share what I think. But there was a kid in Alabama I thought was super talented, Dustin Doherty, I think is his name, and he had just started selling down there. He was really good. He had great chant, great voice, seemed to have the right attitude. A guy I've met over the last year in Kentucky is Will Gregory.
Yeah. I met Will at Santa Teresa.
But,
man, he's a good guy.
Oh, super good guy. Hardworking, good family.
Yeah, good bid color too. He'll,
yep.
He didn't, Will didn't make the top 10 there out of Santa Teresa. And of course I got to judge there. So I went up to him. I said, listen, man, just don't miss the next one. Cause
yep.
You weren't that far away.
Yeah.
And he did. And he was, I think, 11th or 12th in that Santa Teresa deal. So no, he's in and a quality stand-up guy too.
Yep. Him. Sure. And there's a kid out of Wyoming, Garrett Nun. He ended up making a contest as well. I think it was in Missouri where he made it. And he's one of those guys where like sky's the limit. He's the whole package. You can't believe that at however old he is, 21 or something like that they got that much of it figured out, but he does. And they're for any of those guys, there's going to be obstacles that they have to encounter and overcome. But when they get that much talent and that much drive and the people behind them that they do, man, the sky's the limit for them. So wish them the best of luck, because I didn't start off that young, that's for sure.
Yeah, me neither. So you certainly got to look through a lens that a lot of people don't get to look through. Very few people actually get to look through. But as far as the industry that you see, the industry as a whole right now, what would be what you would determine to be the most important issue maybe facing the livestock marketing process, and of course the selling cattle at auction?
I think that it is. I really think that it is the vertical integration of our markets, and I'm not saying that there's this all-knowing force behind it all making it happen to push people out, but I think it just as corporations get bigger, they look for efficiency. When cattle prices are this high, people want some control over what they're going to bring on the back end, and they start locking into contracts and things, which just makes this market more and more vertical. And that to me is the number one issue moving forward in our industry. And I'm one of those guys, I guess, that can see it, but doesn't necessarily have an answer for it, other than we as markets and auctioneers need to continue to do as much as we can do to make it easy for the people to sell through the auction method of marketing. It's paying off for them, all the time. Guys, the cattle coming out of the feed lot, they're bid 232 in the market. They're bringing 244. That's what's happening in our area right now. And it's not an unusual circumstance, but they just feel more comfortable locking in at 232 than they do that they might bring 244 when it comes to the market. And sometimes it's just, it's because it's not as easy for them to sell at the auction sometimes. And so we've got to continue to make it easy for them to do that. We've got to make it comfortable for them to do that. They have to trust us. We talked about before you hit the record button that when it comes to being an auctioneer, like, it's not your chant that gets you hired. It's the trust. It's do you have a relationship with the producers? Do you have a relationship with the market owners? And do they trust you to do your job well? Do they trust you to not be one more problem? And that, I think that's what is going to help our producers continue to come back to the market.
Perfect. Great answer. I couldn't agree more with you.
I would love to see like some grassroots initiative, like take them to the sale September or something, like some type of a grassroots, maybe September would be the wrong month to do it, but like some type of a grassroots push that said, hey, buy your cattle in March, knowing that you're going to sell them through the sale ring in August, like some type of a push. And just, I don't know, maybe it's a dumb idea, but I just love to see something like that. Like, just target a moment in time where everybody has an idea of, I'm going to take them to the sale that day and just see what happens.
Well, historically, across the United States, the biggest months to market cattle have always been the fall months. And I think now there are some people that are strategizing, especially, out here in the West, we have the opportunity by weather, to calve all year or to calve in a different cycle. And I think that, certainly is a plus for some of those guys now that are, saying, I don't want to sell my calves in the fall. I want to sell them in the spring. And to stay away from that, basically, just, large amount of cattle that are coming in and people having to deal with them, handle them.
Yeah. I was talking more about like fat cattle, more about like finished cattle. Like I would love to see a time where we just dedicated, a few weeks or something to just always, bring them all to the sale, see what happens.
Interesting. So tell me, I don't want you to get sentimental on me, but I don't want to know kind of, there's got to be, I know certainly you're a changed person, by this year and having the opportunity to represent the Livestock Marketing Association, and of course represent lots of people in agriculture and certainly in the animal side too. But kind of, is there something that's changed in you now that you don't think that is going to stay with you the rest of your life?
One of the things that stuck out to me, and I didn't realize it right away, was how much this meant to other people. Like, I guess I always looked at it like, oh, this would be, awesome to do and awesome to win. And you get that honor. And then you start looking around, you start looking at the other people in your life that take ownership of it. And to me, that's been pretty special, that, I sell a Monday sale here at home every week. And I can call my dad. I can send him a text literally like the Sunday before. Hey, something, they asked me to go somewhere and I forgot to let you know about it. Can you cover the sale tomorrow? Yep. Put down what he's doing. He's got a farm to run. He's got his own stockyard to run. He's, he's very, very busy man. He just set that down and go sell that sale so that I can leave. My poor wife, and, she works most of the time from home. She homeschools two of our daughters, and we got a dog, and we got 2 cats, and we got 4 chickens, and then there's there's 6 or 7 horses across the fence over there, and then we had a bad ice storm this spring that took our power out for a week, and when the winter comes, the driveway piles up with snow. But if I had to be in Oklahoma that week, like, Okay, let me know when you're coming back. You know,
Mhm.
just take it all on, take it in stride. I'm not saying that when I came home, I could sit down on the couch and relax. You know, there was a list of stuff
But I did
to
anyways.
catch up. Yeah, I probably did anyways.
Yeah.
Or, or, or maybe I just drove a little slower from the airport, knowing that
Yeah.
that list was there. But my brother, my brother was somebody that took some of this on himself. Went and got some opportunities. Like there was a 4-H sale that people called and asked if we would do, and he signed it up and told them how we were going to do it and made it special for us to both be there and do it. And I think part of that was to say, like, hey, we got a world champion here in this state and in our family. So showcasing that, like, he's taking ownership of it. My nephew's taking ownership of it. The people at my dad's, or my parents, I guess my mom and dad both own, I should clarify that. um the producers there, the guys that work there, the women that work there, in the office, in the cafe, like, they've all taken ownership of it. A lot of our clients at that we do equipment auctions and stuff for, they've taken ownership of it. Like, it's just that part was pretty cool to me. I didn't expect that.
Well, and certainly then, it seems like you've realized that, it takes, I hate to say that, but a village to put, to be a champion for a year. And so, yeah, kudos. Yeah, I've often thought they should give an award to the wife that put up with the guy being gone, I mean, for a whole year. And so, anyways, because certainly deserve that for sure. So, since you've had this full year now of being a champion, what advice would you give the champion that's going to be crowned tomorrow? What you know?
Do it all. Like you get 1 year. I was talking to Jace Thompson last night about that, about this past year. And I said it was like 9 years I was in this contest. I don't know how much money I spent trying to win it, but I'll bet it was 6 figures over the course of that time. You add up going to a qualifier, you add up going to the worlds, your hotels, your flights. And then it's not just the LMA. Like, if you want to win the LMA, you got to get in the greater Midwest too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to do well in both of those, you're gonna end up in Calgary. And you're gonna do a state contest, or you're gonna go take a seminar, or you're gonna go to an auctioneers association's session. You all of that stuff is preparing you to be able to win this contest, or at least it was for me. So when you add all that up, I mean, it's an incredible amount of effort and money to to get yourself in a position to hopefully be able to win it. And then when you do, or if you do, you have 1 year to kind of pay it, to have it pay off, to
Yeah,
experience that. So
sure.
do it all. Don't push any of it off because there's because you got a softball league coming up, or you're a bowler or something like that. Like, no, go do it. Like, just stop what you're doing and go do it. I promise you won't regret it. I mean, I hated being gone for 9 days at a time, sometimes, or whatever. Like, yeah, that's a struggle. That's pressure on everybody, but you get one shot at it. If there's a market that calls and wants you to be there, like, do everything you can to go do that. And then another thing is stay in the moment as best you can. Like, I started journaling, and I got all the way up to like December. Then I was writing it down, and then it kind of got away from me. But I'll look back on that someday. I don't have a very good memory. I'm the type that's always looking for, like, what's tomorrow, and I forget that there's stuff going on today sometimes. And that journal, someday I'll look back at that and be like, oh, that's right. That market, they closed that Mexico border down. The next week I was in Oklahoma City, and that market took off, and there was a stage or stands full of buyers. And Tyler and I went to dinner that night and had steak, and I ended up staying in the same hotel. I'll look back on that in this journal later. So, like, stay right in the moment and live it up. And probably the last thing is, I had this conversation with Kyle Shobe. I said, I've given it, or I've tried to give it as much credit as it deserves, to be that the champion. And maybe I'm not describing that well, but like if somebody said, wow, that's a cool truck, how did you win that? Like, oh, I won this contest or whatever. Like I never diminished it. Like, or I've tried to never diminish it. Maybe I have a time or two, but I've tried to never diminish it. Like, I'm proud of the fact that I got that done. I'm proud of the fact that I'll be remembered for the 2024 World Champion. And if somebody wants to talk about it, like I'll stop and tell you about it. I want to raise it up as much as I can.
And so that leads me into, the question, want to talk a little bit about the Livestock Marketing Association. And, I'm a big proponent of theirs, and just the things that, they do so many things for our industry that most people have no idea. And so many people benefit from, the things that the LMA does that they have no idea, in our industry, what they play out for them. And I'm certain that you saw a lot of things this year that a lot of people wouldn't have an idea what the LMA does for all of us.
Yeah, I suppose I probably got a little better look or a little longer look than what some do, but I think there's opportunities out there for people to get in and see what they're doing. Like, go to the fly-in. If you want to experience up close and personal the impact that the Livestock Marketing Association has on our entire industry, go to that fly-in. The effort, Lucas behind the scenes, I remember talking to him a little bit beforehand. He had your schedule all lined out. You're going to be with the LeMasters from South Carolina, and you're going to visit these senators and these representatives, and you're going to be at 3:00 at this time, and then you're going to be back here at this building at 5:00, and you're going to, you're going to talk to this aide, and this is what they know about. Like, he had a book like that for everybody, and there is a ton of thought and a ton of scheduling. And I remember asking him, Lucas, how many times did you get this done and think you were pretty well done? And then somebody called and said, hey, we got to reschedule, and it screwed everything up. He's like, oh, it's all the time, like constant. Like,
Yeah.
That looked like a lot of work. He's like, it is. It's a tremendous amount of work.
He wrote everything in pencil, huh?
Yeah, I'd imagine. But he went through with a fine-tooth comb and put that together with a lot of thought and a lot of effort. And the entire LMA staff that was there, working towards that, we had a girl, she's fairly new to the LMA, Callie, that was taking our group around, and she was kind of learning right with us, but had her talking points, knew what her role was, and I thought we made just our little group. I thought we made a heck of an impact. And then you think about all of the different groups going out and speaking to people from their area or other areas that are making decisions for our country and for the viability of our industry. Like, man, that was pretty huge. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know much about this Common Ground Summit, but I know that took a lot of effort from the entire staff to stay on top of, and the feedback that I've just seen on social media and just chatting with a few people was that was really, really a powerful building block going forward to bring our industry partners together to work towards something in step,
common.
Yeah. Just like the name.
We have a lot in common.
Yeah. So those are kind of the two things that stand out to me that the LMA is doing. That it's not that you shouldn't, if you're interested in it, like, the opportunity is there to hop right in and get on board too. That's one thing I like about the LMA. It's not like they're going and doing something and then coming back and telling you about it. Like, they'll do that, but the door is open for you to get right on board and come too.
Yeah, I'm just always amazed at how much most, the average producer in the United States doesn't realize, how much the LMA does for them. They have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I talked about it the other day. It was in that video that they shot that, a typical producer, a typical market owner is, through no fault of their own, but their head is down. They are tackling their daily their
have enough
daily
of their own
job.
issues going on at the
Everything,
house. Yeah.
everything on the plate's right here in front of you, and you're looking down and you're working hard on that. It's hard to look up and look out 10 years down the road, and when you do, at least for me and some of the people that I've talked to, like, it's easier to identify problems than it is solutions. The LMA is looking on the horizon and they're finding solutions, and that's pretty neat.
I love the fact. I love the fact that the LMA, I think some time ago, took a stance that they understand that a good offense is a great defense.
Yeah,
and they try to get in front of some of that stuff. And so for that reason, yeah, I could go on. I'm sure we could come on and do a 1-hour segment on how great the LMA, and we didn't even start talking about the people that work there and support that deal. Those girls, I call them girls because I can, but they're just Kathy and Kristen and Dominic, and they just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Great.
Well,
great
there is, of course, a lot of women in behind the scenes, and then you look at some of the REOs. I mean, these guys are making a huge impact in their area, and they know a lot about the industry. They care very deeply about it. Grant Patattle's a guy that is very high on my list of people. Bryce Divern's another guy that's very high on my list of people that you can depend on this industry. Just look around the country at the REO that's in that area. They're on top of things.
Yeah, we lost our REO.
Yep. Well, he's still there. He's just in a little different position now.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to get a new REO, but I can promise you we're in good hands. That's a good guy. Yeah, Forrest is a good guy, and I'm excited for him, and I know he'll do great things. Hey, we need to get going. I'm gonna wrap this up. So I want to ask you, if you had to do one day over this last year, what one day would you go back and redo? For a good thing.
Yeah, man, I would want to go back to the day of the competition, and I would just want to watch that day. Like, I don't want to do the day over. I just want to go watch it from a different perspective. Like, I feel like I have this mixture of how I saw it and how I remember things, and then how I've seen in a video. And I would just like to that'd be neat to just go back and watch it from, a third set of eyes, just the entire day.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people experience that, like at your wedding or, a big birthday party. So many people come and, you get all this things going on, and that you really lost sight of what really kind of happened there, and that's a great answer. I really do like that answer. All right, we're going to finish up here. So what's going to happen for Wade now going forward? What after the contest, Wade comes home, he's back to
I'm going to, at the very least, I'm going to do what I've always done. My wife and I were talking. I said, I feel like there's something big. I don't know what it is. I feel like there's a big change coming. I don't know what that looks like. It just kind of feels like there is. But if there isn't, like, I love my life. I sell cattle on Monday. About half the year, I go to South Dakota on Wednesday and Thursday. I'll do charity auctions on Friday and Saturday, sometimes Thursday on those. Once or twice a month, I'm going to Fort Worth or somewhere to work a video sale for Live Ag. That's been a new thing that started this January, and they have a tremendous crew. We have a great time. Do a nice job. Get to work with that elite group down there in the Southeast, and some other groups that are consigning cattle, and that's been a lot of fun. So if all I do is what I've always done, like, I'm good with that.
You're great.
But yeah, if there's a new challenge for me to take on, I'd be excited to look into it as well. I'm trying to finish up getting my private pilot's license, and it takes a long time when you're never around to get back in and start
hours in, huh?
Yeah, start over at the ground level every single time. So I'm trying that. And I don't know.
Yeah, you need to get Ben Hale to help you.
Yeah, Ben and I have talked about it several times.
Have him take you up.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could do a podcast on that probably. Huh?
Yeah, well, if we both
Wade and Ben in the air.
Yeah, if we both walked away from it, it'd probably make a good episode.
Anyways. Hey, we're gonna wrap this up. Wade, I want to say congratulations to you. You were a great representative for not only auctioneers but for our livestock industry. We appreciate the commitment that you made this year to do and represent us, and so we'll be eternally grateful. And I wish you well, and have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, we just wrapped up this Western Ag Life podcast with Wade Leist, who's the 2024 World Champion Livestock Auctioneer. And those of you that are tuning in, listening today, tomorrow the contest will be broadcast live. You'll be able to find it on the Livestock Marketing Association's YouTube channel, and then you should be able to find it on their website on their broadcasting the live sale. We'll be at Dunlap, Iowa. Tune in. If you're close to Dunlap, Iowa, I highly recommend you go in person. The Shabans will put on a fantastic event. Wade, I think we're going to see some record fat prices and cattle prices. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see that. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if it's Western, it's probably Western Ag Life.